This module don't come to any lectures, but they don't watch the video as well, so what's the fucking point? But there you go. Okay, never mind, I'm not bitter about it. Okay, you all looked at people around you? Excellent, it's not too hard so far, is it? Okay, now I'd like you to give the people around you a round of applause. I'm really getting into it. You know, look at these people and tell them, yeah, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. Okay. There we go. Don't we all feel better about ourselves? You can all have a seat. Excellent. Start with a bit of positivity, people. You've achieved something important. Now, who's going to tell me what that was all about? Why did I feel that you had the need to tell the people around you, yes, well done? Any ideas?
Real life.
You are?
It was a real life like.
A real life, oh, that's interesting, a real life like. Yeah, that's what likes must feel like if you actually gave a shit about people.
You have people need. You have people need to be satisfied by other people that want.
Yeah, people get off on being, you know, treated well by other people. I think that's a basic human need, but that's not what I'm getting at here. Do you have any other ideas? It's much deeper than that, and it's media related, most importantly. Okay, the reason why I encourage you to applaud your peers is this. You are the greatest generation of photographers that have ever lived. Now that's pretty sweet. Think of all these motherfuckers who've been photographers before. You did well, okay, let me address this question properly here. For those of you who might have attended any media history lectures last year, which the number would have been minuscule, because let's be fair, that course isn't exactly a pulse racer, is it now? It's a shame, that used to be my module. It's to have full classes of people hanging on every word. Now it's become some sad parody of what it could be. Never mind. I don't give a fuck. They still pay me by the hour, okay? For those of you who might have attended a media history lecture last year, can anyone tell me when photography was invented?
19th century.
This is correct, the 19th century, but given that covers a span of 100 years, we could be more specific.
1920?
Where did you get that from? Is that a guess?
Yeah.
It's not a bad guess in all truth, because one of the processes of photography was in the 1820s, that's for sure. And if you want to argue that the first ever photograph was around then, although technically speaking, so called a photograph, yeah, you're pretty much. So that gives us about 200 years. Okay? 200 years of the medium of photography. And you people are the greatest photographers that have ever lived. Now that must feel good. 200 years of human history, and you're kicking everyone's ass. But there's the sad point. The next generation after you, they're going to be better than you. Oh, that's sad. Never mind. That's what progress does, unfortunately. I used to be, you know, cutting edge, and now I'm just a sad, pathetic relic of human history. This is life. Now, the reason why I raise this as an important point is this. The reason why you are the greatest generation of photographers who've ever lived is twofold. One, firstfold, you have been carrying around things like this most of your lives, which includes a highly sophisticated digital camera, amongst the best that have ever been created. So, as a matter of daily life, you have been carrying around photographic equipment which is far better than most human beings have ever had in the span of photography as a medium. And you've just been doing it as a byproduct of owning a device which has been done every day. So you have had the equipment to be great at photographs. But secondly is this, you live in a time and with tools that saturate your world with visual imagery. You spend huge amounts of time consuming imagery taken by other people. And because of that, you have developed a sensibility towards the visual image which is highly, highly developed. You are extremely sophisticated interpreters of the visual image, whether you know that or not. It doesn't really matter if you think, oh yeah, I put a lot of time into it, like, or not. The very fact that you have been immersed in an environment so filled with the visual image has led to a level of understanding and comprehension of the visual medium, which means that you are, by far and away, the most, not just the most skilled takers of photographs of all time, but also the most skilled interpreters of photographic images of all time. Good for you. Be proud of yourselves. It's kind of by accident, you didn't choose it, but nevertheless, it's true. To give you a counterpoint, I am, roughly speaking, between 24 and 22 years old, right? I can't take a selfie. I'm not going to do it. Every time I try to do it, I look like some kind of goblin who's got mumps. It's like everything out here bulges out, and you look at it and think, you get racked with self-doubt. Like, mother, am I that hideous? I've got to delete this. I've got to delete every image of me that's ever existed. I can never be photographed again. I can never appear on a camera. I must look like something that lives under a bridge. I just don't know how to do it. No idea. Never had to do it. When I was growing up, didn't have a camera. Didn't own one. What was the point? Never did anything which was worthy of being camera captured. You know? All those achievements that I had as a kid, playing football, playing rugby, whatever, no pictures of it. No images whatsoever. Just didn't have one. Wasn't important. But now the photographic image is a cornerstone of existence, to the extent to which, very often if we don't take an image of it, it doesn't exist as a significant event in any case. It doesn't necessarily have to be an image of us, but there has to be some visual recording of something for it to have any lasting significance. The photographic image and the flooding of the photographic image in everyday life has not just re-engineered the way we see the world, but also re-engineered the way that we remember the world. If there is no visual prompt to remember an event, very often it will be forgotten. Because for your generation, it's not significant if it isn't committed to a visual image in that way. It's not captured. That might sound like, you know, I'm having a diss and thinking, you know, you guys can't remember anything unless you take a photo of it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that memory itself has been re-engineered by the presence of not just devices which take images everywhere, but also platforms and services which share images to others and allow us to develop an ongoing history of ourselves in visual images. And that is the significance, in particular, of Instagram that I want to get to today. Instagram rewires society itself by providing us with a visual memory of what happens in our lives and what happens in the lives of others. And we can keep the narrative of our lives going via services like Snapchat and Instagram. And the word narrative is extremely significant because a narrative is not a history of facts. A narrative is a story. Stories are edited. Some things are emphasized, some things are taken away. But when we create a narrative of something, we are shaping a story rather than letting it be told by other people. So the significance for society, in particular of Instagram, lies in the fact that it allows us to tell a story about ourselves in which we can take control. That means it has both empowerment in it, but the flip side of that is always that any digital platform is all about exploitation. And while our self-narrative can be developed, we can also be exploited by the platform itself. So what are we going to do today? We are going to cover the primary importance of visual communication and culture in the social networking age, define what a selfie is. Selfies come in for a lot of bad press, but actually we do them all the time. Contextualize the selfie as grounded in the theory of Irving Goffman and other sociological theory, identify and understand the range of communication possible through selfies and visual culture, and critically evaluate the reasons why selfies become a salient form of communication through social media. So strap it on in, because that's what we're going to do. You might ask why a whole lecture on this course about something really specific, a specific form of photography, a selfie. And some of you will be already looking at this thinking, I don't take any selfies. Never take a selfie image. Good for you. But you take images which are self-representation. It's like me when I don't put any pictures of myself on Instagram. The images that I do put construct self-representation of form. Even though I'm not in them, I am trying to construct a self-representation. Why are we doing this? Every day, Facebook users upload 350 million photos. Instagram has shared 95 million photos, and there are 3 billion snaps every day. What does that tell us? Visual communication is the cornerstone of all communication on social media. It is not text-based communication which is important, it is actually sharing images. Images are by far the largest traffic that goes on social media platforms. Now, not all of those will be selfies, but selfies have become seen as the bane and boom of internet-mediated visual practices. So these are not marginal practices I'm talking about here. So taking and sharing of images is actually the fundamental traffic of social media. Dominant mode of communication, therefore. And that's the important point. We communicate via the image. We communicate our feelings and thoughts, not through words, not through how we tag images, not necessarily how we caption the image, but what the image itself says, because our audience, if you want to use that word, I hate the word audience, but it kind of works in this context. Our audience for our imagery on social media interprets the image. They interpret what we say afterwards. It is the image first, our framing of the image afterwards. Therefore, we are already making the assumption. If you're posting an image to communicate a state of mind, a feeling, you're already making an assumption that people will see that and understand. You're already wired into this network. Now, if we go to semiotic theory, I'm sure you all have semiotic theory burned into your brains and your consciousness after the quite staggeringly beautiful lecture that I gave you on it in MS-232. Theory of semiotics argues that any system of meaning is a circulation of signs. And in a circulation of signs, we have, as you know, a signified and a signifier that makes up a sign, but you also have other people in a shared community of meaning who you know are able to interpret those signs correctly, and that's how we communicate meaning with one another. So if I was to say, holy shit, there's an axe murderer who's just walked in, you know, one, I'm lying, and two, you know what an axe murderer is, because you all understand what those words, when they're put next to each other, you understand the meaning. It's the same with visual communication. When you communicate something visually, you already implicitly know that the community you're sharing it with will be able to understand that communication, decode it correctly, and respond to it in a way which is appropriate. As that's the dominant form of communication via social media, it's fairly important that we actually understand how it's done now. Hence the focus of this lecture. I'm going to talk about Instagram mostly, but I'll tip into Snapchat a little bit. I find it difficult to talk about Snapchat because I don't use Snapchat at all, because I'm a 44-year-old man. 44-year-old men cannot use Snapchat. It just can't be done. Okay? If you know a 44-year-old man that uses Snapchat, 999. Okay, very, very important. Or 111 if you don't think it's that important, but nevertheless, get in touch with some kind of authority, okay? So, key book on Instagram is by Tamar Lever and Crystal Aberdeen and colleagues from 2020. And the book is imaginatively called Instagram. I think I put a copy of it in the reading folder, which you can access through Canvas. Their key argument is this: that platform-driven filters have given way to socially driven norms. The history of Instagram can be summed up in this way. It was a neat little application that came along in the early 2010s that allowed us to do interesting things with photos and share them. Gave us a whole bank of computational tools to change how photos looked. You could apply filters, you didn't have to be an expert, you didn't have to know anything about Photoshop or anything like that. You could just use the app and it would change things. And that's how people got onto Instagram as an app, basically, in the early 2010s. They're like, oh, this is cool, it will make my photos look like this and like this and like this. Neat way of doing it. It's moved from that to a platform that now does socially driven norms. And basically, the rules of engagement on Instagram have become a template for how we communicate with people visually. And their takeaway of this is that the material world is now seen through the lens of what is Insta-worthy. We make judgments about what images to take, how to take them, when we take them, with whom we take them, and in what fashion we take them, and what we do afterwards to that image, importantly, as well as the editing process of images, on the basis of what Instagram has done to society. How Instagram has enforced rules of what we should share with whom. If you have a public account, there are ways that you should do it. If you have a private account, there are ways that you should do it. And you need to monitor who you share what with. Nevertheless, and above and beyond that, you have Instagram's own rules of what's actually acceptable practice of what can be taken and not. According to Lever et al. Then, what's happened is this process has redesigned the way that we see the world itself. We see the world now through the lens of, is this something to be taken for that? Or is it something to be taken for that? Is this something I can take? First of all, you have the first decision tree. Do I take an image of this? Yes or no? And then if it's yes, what kind of image is based on the platform that it can be shared upon? So you might have not for share, Instagram, Snapchat, if anyone ever still uses it, Facebook, etc., etc. Right? And this has fundamentally redesigned the way that we actually see the world. Because, remarkable as it might sound, we didn't have that decision-making process 12 years ago. Just 12 years. Not that long. It didn't exist. Because these tools ostensibly didn't exist. Instagram had been around for a little while at that point. Snapchat a little bit longer. But nobody used them. They were really small, marginal applications at that point. But Facebook was the big one to change the way that we actually took and shared images. And these just took and ran. So, the way that we see the world has been redesigned by the apps that we use. Why are you not skip? Son. Instagram is not an app. It is a thing. I don't want to get deep into the sort of philosophy of what a thing is, the ontological certainty of the thing in itself. That would involve like Immanuel Kant and a whole bunch of other people, and I don't want to get into it. But Instagram is certainly more than one thing. It is an app, it is a program, it is an algorithm, it's a database of images, it's videos, it's captions, it's comments, it's geolocation tags, likes, emojis, it's personal data, it's APIs, it's a series of decisions by owners, designers, programmers, etc., which we have nothing to do. It's a series of decisions by us, and it's our understanding of the app and how we approach it as well. So say Instagram is a photo sharing app. No, it doesn't work that way. It is a whole series of other things. Just as important as that is the algorithms that present the world to you in a particular way, which you have no decision over. You have input to, but you have no decision how they program your input yourself to display the world to you. So if you're having a bad day, and you're looking at Instagram, and it's making you really pissed off. You're seeing a whole bunch of content, you're thinking, I fucking hate everyone on this. I hate everyone on this app, and I want you all to die a fiery death caused by a comet that nobody knew it was coming, but hit straight in your house. You ever get those days? Call them weekdays. Instagram is doing that on purpose. It is making you feel that way because its algorithms have decided here's a chance to make you feel miserable. Instagram controls and regulates our moods themselves. Why would it do that? Why does it make you sad? More engagement. Why? If something's making you sad, why do you keep doing that? Less secure in relationships, people as well. If something makes you sad and unhappy, why do we keep doing it?
Looking for someone to cheer you up.
Off chance that things might get better, yeah? Yeah, something might be in there to make you.
You keep like waiting for a break in the pattern, so like you hope that something will be different.
Yeah, and they program that in. We've already talked about this sort of the gambler's sort of paradigm of social media. It makes you feel miserable for a long period of time. I'm going to talk a lot more about this next week. But yeah, they'll punctuate it with little spikes of making you feel good as well. So this is Instagram. It's a program and an algorithm and the decisions made by the programmers and the owners of the application to make it that way. If Instagram made people feel happy all the time, no one would use it. That would be my summation of it. If Instagram made you feel good all the time, you'd stop using it really quickly. Because as human beings, we don't like feeling good all the time. We actually prefer to feel miserable and upset and angry. Because then that makes us feel really good when the good stuff comes along. Instagram understands this. Anyway, it is naive to think of something like Instagram, a platform like Instagram, as a singular. It does so many more things. Instagram is not the inventor of photo sharing in any way. When Facebook bought the app, it was 18 months old, had 13 employees only, so it's a tiny company. There's coffee shops that have got more employees than Instagram at that point. 30 million users in total, all of which are on the iPhone because it didn't have an Android app at the time. Although there was one coming out just before the takeover. Facebook spent a lot of money on Instagram, an app that only had 30 million users, whereas at the time, Facebook's usership was in advance of 500 million. Facebook didn't buy Instagram because it thought it was a good idea. It bought it for two reasons. One, it saw it as a competitor. So if you see something as a competitor, you can do two things. One, you can compete with it, or if you're a bigger company, you can simply buy it. So it no longer is a competitor. And this is what Facebook did. This is a history of Facebook as an organisation, actually. WhatsApp was exactly the same story. They saw WhatsApp becoming popular. You know, a lot of people using it as an instant messenger, and they thought, you know, we've got our own instant messaging service, but WhatsApp is killing us, so what do? Let's just buy it. And that's exactly what they did. As a subsidiary of just buying it, they also got all the user data for everyone on Instagram as well, as a bonus. What confuses me is that Instagram has been owned by Facebook for well over a decade now, and people still think of it as something else. There's something different to it. People say, oh, I haven't got a Facebook account, but I've got Instagram. It's like, well, that means you've got a Facebook account. But they're one and the same. You have the same thing. It's like, Facebook, oh no, Facebook's awful. Facebook's an awful company. They're terrible. It's like, yeah, and you're one of their products. You're not the customer of Facebook, you're one of their products. You're one of the things they're selling because you have an Instagram account. But somehow we've got this logical disconnect. People can do these mental gymnastics and say, like, Instagram's not as bad as Facebook, or it doesn't suck as much as Facebook. It's like, yeah. Do you know if I say Punch and Judy, do you know what I'm talking about? The old puppets thing, like, you know, really lame thing you might see when you're a kid. And like, if you look under the puppets, there's just one guy. That's Instagram and Facebook, right? They like might have different things going on, but there's one guy with holding the two puppets, right? They're the same company at the end of the day. It has an image. I don't know about charming. I think my choice of word here is a little bit off. I don't know if Instagram's got a charming image, but it certainly has an image which is not commensurate with the ownership of the company. And people look at Facebook in a very different way than they look at Instagram, and they're exactly the same company as one another, which kind of confuses me. Because if you've got a moral stance in particular against Facebook, then delete Instagram and delete WhatsApp as well, because that's what's happening. That idea of charming comes from some of Instagram's policies. Instagram, although it's the same company, has some very significant differences in terms of how it allows people to actually access information and to share information. Most importantly, flexibility on real name policy is an important one. Facebook got in a lot of trouble in the mid-2010s when it started enforcing what's called a real name policy. It did this because there was consternation in wider society that people could use Facebook as a scammers platform. But Facebook's reasons for doing this and enforcing a real name policy were not anything to do with going against crime or anything like that. It's a very, very simple system. Facebook needs you to have a singular identity so it can maximize how valuable you are as a commodity to sell to advertisers. If you have multiple identities on this platform, it minimizes the amount of capital that it can realize from you as an individual, because you are necessarily spreading that out amongst different identities. Now, if you wanted to use a different name to the one that links up to other key systems which has you in a database, like health databases, the electoral register, these sort of things, that caused a problem for Facebook, because it made the data it was collecting on people less accurate. So Facebook's real name policy was a policy which said your account on Facebook and other systems, other platforms that they use, has to match up with your legal name. Can anyone think why that's a problem? Why might that be problematic for people?
People don't really like to share their names to the social media, because obviously Facebook is like harvesting data.
I think there might be some people in that position. Yeah, that's one reason. Any others? Okay. Let's say we have somebody who's got a Facebook account and they change that. Let's say somebody transitions perhaps from being male to female. So all of a sudden Facebook is enforcing gay. That's not very good for people's psychological well-being, I would argue, if you're going through a transition of gender and Facebook is telling you, no, you still must be called by your male name. And I think they could do that. Oh yeah. Not only would they have done that and enforced people to use their actual legal names. Moreover, let's take it in a different direction, that kind of example. Let's say you're somebody fleeing domestic violence and you would like to change your name in order that the perpetrator of domestic violence against you can't trace you on a social network. Facebook turns around and says, no, you have to use your name. That's not great. What are you left with? Either one, okay, you can't access the system, but all your friends are on, and this is their primary mode of communicating with people. Okay, so I don't want to do that, but then you're saying I have to use my name, which leaves open the possibility that I could be traced by this network, by people who want to find. Facebook were presented with these arguments, but really didn't give a shit about any of it, because it's not important to their business model. Instagram, on the other hand, which is a platform owned by Facebook, weirdly showed more flexibility on this. And therefore, an image was drawn up that this is like a better platform. So there's more flexibility on this. It allows for private accounts for non-published comments. So we call those Finstagrams, or Instagram's main account, Finstagram's private accounts. It allows you basically to have different levels of authenticity with regards to how you construct your personas on it. I'll get into what this means at the bottom, multiple backstages, as we go through the lecture, but it is quite important. that point. So we got something which appears to be nicer. But it's the same data-driven advertising platform. In 2016, they got rid of the chronological timeline that they had and created an algorithmic timeline because it was more efficient in terms of not just selling people products, but also manipulating mood and emotion in users in order to make them more susceptible to advertising. Rejects content on the basis of Facebook's own guidance and guidelines. Stole basically the entirety of the interface of Instagram has been stolen from other apps. Stories, a complete steal from Snapchat in 2015. And basically, Meta, as it's now known, the company, when they talk about Instagram in documentation company, they call it a research and development tool. What that means is that all the little experiments that Meta wants to do on people with regards to behavioural influence and so on, they use Instagram as the platform for that research and development. So they see Instagram itself as like a giant box with rats running around a maze in it. Those rats are you, and they're continually making you do different things on the basis of that. We see as well that, you know, although Twitter and Facebook are considered the ones which are big in terms of social influence and democracy and so on, electoral influence on Instagram is really, really powerful as well. The Blackstram in 2016 account, it was estimated of those, it picked up 300,000 followers by the this is in the US elections for 2016. 300,000 followers. It was an account set up by one of the groups affiliated to what's called a super PAC, that one of the financial groups that was supporting Donald Trump. It was set up by one of those groups with the entire, this is so cynical, the entire point of that account was to encourage black people not to vote. Not to vote for Donald Trump, because they thought that was a stupid thing to do. But if you could encourage them not to vote for Hillary Clinton, it's just as good as getting somebody to vote for Donald Trump at the end of the day. In the key swing states in the 2016 US election, the story of that election, which got flipped in 2020, was not that Trump won, it's that Clinton lost. Because the people who would normally vote for Hillary Clinton simply didn't bother to vote. If all the normal voters had come out, she would have won by miles, and she won the popular vote by millions anyway. But in the swing states, if people had actually gone and voted for her, she would have won. Accounts like this, and this is one of the biggest numbers, but there were literally thousands of them, were just set up to encourage people not to vote for her, not to go and vote for Donald Trump. And it didn't appear that anyone did go and vote for Donald Trump on the basis of this. They just said, just don't vote at all. And that was enough to get him a victory in an election, where if he didn't win the popular vote. So there is a considerable amount of political influence that goes on to Instagram too. In terms of Instagram as a platform that harms people, we've got media law people in here. Just had Will just now. Yeah. Did you talk about Molly Russell yet? No? Does anyone know who I'm talking about? Molly Russell? No? Only a little bit older than you guys, I would say. Well, maybe 4 or 5 years old. Yes. Molly Russell was a 17-year-old. I think she's 4 or 5 years old. I'm pretty sure she was 17. Who sadly committed suicide in 2017. When the police went back through her social media history, they found that she had been for years consuming huge amounts of content on Instagram about self-harming and suicide. Not like stories about it, but material that encourages you to do it and gives you examples of how to do it. That kind of content exists on Instagram. The owners of Instagram know it exists. They're perfectly aware that this content exists. It is all part of the algorithmic churn. They know what the hashtags are that these kinds of accounts use. Molly Russell, and just Molly Russell, there's lots of people around the world who access this material. It was seen as a major contributory factor, if not in terms of causality, but in terms of method of how Molly Russell died. So, various governments, but the most important was Molly Russell is English. The UK government put a lot of pressure on Facebook as a company to get them to remove content like this. A lot of high-level meetings with executives and so on. I think Zuckerberg himself was invited to speak with the government, whether he did or not, I'm not sure. I think he must have. And Matt Hancock, the former health secretary, was crowing about this at one point, saying we're doing significant things to get Instagram to change this, and it's a public health issue and so on. Nothing's been done. They haven't changed the guidelines, terms and conditions of use. This content is still out there. It's very easy to find. Why? Well, Instagram or Facebook, Meta, whatever you want to call them, make a judgment, right? Is that content driving traffic? Yeah. Therefore, that content is valuable. It has $1 worth to the platform to have that content on there. It might not be the most popular content, might not be, Kylie Jenner, but nevertheless, there are people accessing that content. Therefore, it is worth something to us. So we're not going to remove it. So, despite weasel words to the UK government, which has no power to enforce any of this stuff anyway, they just keep on producing it. Keep on letting people produce this content because, do you know what? It makes money. It's fine. And one kid, do they care? One less person on the platform, I'm sure they can be replaced by somebody. That's the cynicism that underpins companies like this. So, the applications that we use in visual culture are as horrible as anything out there. Do you all get the impression that I don't like social media very much? I don't think it's very good. This image here, can anyone tell me what that building is? Does anyone know? Maybe somebody's been to it.
Is it nice?
It isn't, but I understand why you say it, but it's not, no. We got nobody from 6 counties of Northern Ireland here? No? Sometimes I got one or two. Okay, that's the Titanic Museum in Belfast. I had to go get my passport renewed once when I lived in Ireland. I had to drive to Belfast to get my passport renewed, and they said come back in like, I don't know, it was 6 hours, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing for 6 hours? So I walked from the passport office to where they built the Titanic, and then took some photos of the museum that they built there. And it speaks to how crap Northern Ireland is as a country. I'm glad there's nobody from Northern Ireland. It speaks to how crap Northern Ireland is as a country, that they have a giant museum in honour of a boat that didn't make one fucking journey. It sunk on the first go. It didn't even get to the first fucking journey. It sunk before it even finished the first one. But, and that's like a big thing. They're really proud of the Titanic. I'm like, guys, no, that's shit. That's really bad. It's like Swansea being proud of the heroin epidemic in the 1990s that we had. No, we don't, we don't want to talk about it. We want to bury that shit. Anyway, I thought it was a cool looking building. Why did I take it? Why did I take it with those kind of filters on at that time of day, with all the lights on and all that? Why did I do that? Why did I take it from that angle with the nice water and the dock there where they built the Titanic and all this shit? Why? What did I do with it? What was my motivation? Yeah.
Instagram.
Of course it was. Now there's a fucking Instagram pic if I ever saw one. Shove that straight on Instagram. Result. Get some likes. Get some comments. Oh yeah. Like a pig in shit I was after that. Amazing. I stood by the side of this sort of very weird sort of exhibition to abject failure, and which cost thousands of dollars as well. And thought, oh, that'd be a really good shot for Instagram. That's going to get me a lot of likes, this museum. Okay, right. It's not like I went out into the middle of the sea and took a picture of a place called Titanic Sand or something like that. That'd be good, right? But then it got me I thought about this afterwards, and it's like, alright, why would I do that? You know, what is going on in my head here?
可以走landmark，
Hmm?
你可以走landmark，
Because it's a landmark, sure, but I pass lots of landmarks on, you know, on a daily basis. I don't feel the need to take images of those landmarks, you know.
Well, it needs to be more intellectual and interesting.
I guess, yeah, it's a museum,
Validation.
right? It validates particular parts of my identity, I guess.
Because I assume you like the aesthetic in it and it suits your personality.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool looking building. I mean, I'm not into architecture or anything, but it looks pretty cool.
Does it definitely reactions with that?
I'm definitely trying to chase that shit, yeah. I'm definitely trying to get some physiological thing going on. I position it one more thing. As soon as I saw that building, at that time of day, this was like, what time of year was that? Was it March, something like that? It was about, I'd say about 5ish in the afternoon, so the light was going down a little bit. It was starting to look really nice. It was freezing cold, but you wouldn't tell from the photo. I looked at the way that everything aligned, all those elements, and thought, yeah, that's Insta-worthy. Even back then, 2015, I'm like, that aesthetically is something that I should be taking a photograph of. Not that I want to take a photograph of, but that I should take an image of. Here is an opportunity that I should be taking. As somebody who is involved on these platforms, this is something I should capture. You know? And I remember thinking about it afterwards. Like, I put it up on Instagram and got like 6 likes or something like that, because I only got like 20 followers or something. And it was like, so you think you should do it, but maybe you shouldn't. You know? Maybe that image I could have just kept for myself. Maybe that image I could have done. Now, what theorists have said, so Sarah Finelli is the most important one in this, I'd say, is that the use of Instagram represents the foundation of a new mobile visualities aesthetic. When we see things in the world, we are compelled to take photographs of them. We are compelled to represent them in a particular way. So our practices of representing the world through the platform transforms our everyday life into seeing things which are appropriate to be represented in this particular way. And that image, I just felt was a classic example of me doing it. I'm not immune to this crap. Like, you know, if I see it, I think it should be represented in that way. In terms of the practices of that, you know, it's not that would imply that I'm a really good photographer. That's not true. I was taking with an old iPhone, but it still had tools that help me out, and there's some kind of filter applied to it on Instagram as well. So Kat Tiedenberg argues that Instagram is the application that mainstreamed the idea that editing should be the default for images before posting on social media. So therefore, taking photos is not the end of a process now. The filter is part of the process now. Does anyone post unfiltered images on Instagram? Wow, that's a lot. Can I have some reasons why? Why, Anne?
Don't really think about it. I don't like it. Like, obviously, like black and white, sometimes I'll put that on there and stuff, but like, it's not something that I remember to do or want to do.
Wow. Any others?
I don't know, I feel like the filters kind of make it look weird. Like, I just don't like how.
You just don't like the aesthetic?
Like it's,
Anyone else feel that? The aesthetic kind of occupies? Yeah? Okay. It's interesting, you know, you have a trend that goes on and then you very often get the reverse trend emerging afterwards. And I think the idea of filtered life, you know, that filtered view is starting to become less popular. That we are making a choice about using filters now, but what that choice needs to be contextualised in is the existence of the filters themselves. The reason why we choose to have no filter is because filters exist. You know, we are making a deliberate choice not to apply the things that we could apply. So that choice always exists within the wider choice that, you know, it is a possibility. Classically, we go to places and order things for the gram. People, I'm not saying people in this room, okay? Although there are, and if I ask this question, I never get anyone that puts their hand up, unfortunately. Which is fine, because if you want to live in delusion, that's okay. That's fine. You know, you deal with your own cognitive dissonance in therapy later in life. That's all right, but it'll cost you money. But I've asked the question for the last few years, you know, do people go to specific places for Instagram? And I always get, no, I wouldn't do anything like that. And then it's like, you know, what did you do this weekend? So I went up Pen y Fan. I was like, you did that for Instagram, you fuck. That's the only reason anyone's ever gone up Pen y Fan is for one of two things: to take a photo to share on Instagram, or to take a photo to share on Tinder. That's it. Nobody's ever been up that fucking stupid mountain for any other reason. It's not even impressive as a mountain. That's the only. I see some knowing looks from Welsh people over here. Know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, we do it. We may not want to admit to it, but we go to places. You know, what should we do on the weekend? Oh, let's go down with Silly. Oh yeah, what do you want to do that for then? Yeah, it's nice down with Silly. It's lovely, beautiful. Been going there since I was 2 years old. But everyone would man there to take photos. It's like if you go down to Brasilia in the summer, everyone, you know, nobody goes to the beach. You got like 5 miles of a beach that's always in the top 10 beaches in the world. And everyone's going down there to stand in the field of fucking sunflowers, which have been planted deliberately to get people to go there, and we were put there deliberately by the National Trust in order to drive up traffic so you'd spend more money in the shop, because they knew that people would go down there to take photos to share on Instagram. It's one of, you know, it's not even cynical. I kind of God bless the National Trust for doing that, for driving up money. I think it's a really good idea. But no one's got. And you could ask people who like walking like, you know, zombies down to the sunflowers in the city, and they're like, you know, if you ask them the question, are you doing this just for the gram? No, I'm. Why, you really like fucking sunflowers? What's going on? Like, you know, don't give me that shit. You're going to stand on a platform in the middle of a sunflower field. What? Please. You're telling me you're going to keep this as a treasured family moment between just you guys?
It's also funny when things that you've grown up with, like, and things that you've been around all your life, become locations where people go for the aesthetic. Like, there's a place in Bristol called Brandon Hill, which was like skins, you know, the bench and skins. And I went there as a kid to go like for picnics and like feed the squirrels and stuff. And then you hear about that and you think, oh, it's just a hill.
That's exactly what it is. It is just a hill. Yeah, at the end of the day, yeah. I used to live not far from Brandon Hill, and yeah, it's a hill. It's nice. Nothing wrong with it. You know, hill. I'm into hills. You know, the sound. You know, there's green and shit. That's good. Like you say, squirrels. I mean, I like squirrels. You know, another rodent. That's pretty cool. But yeah, it's. They're doing enough. People are going to start going down the pier in Mumbles, right? Because they've put that stupid wheel there. That wheel's only going to be open like 4 days a year. Has anyone ever stood at the end of the pier on? When I was a kid, there was a nightclub at the end of that pier. A number of people I've even seen fall into to their deaths off that pier. Right? They come out, stagger out the nightclub, absolutely steamed. Me included, by the way. I've even gone off that pier once as well. It blows a gale about 90 miles an hour down there. That thing is never going to be open. People will go down there to photograph next to it and say, oh, the pier's been there for 130 years. You could have gone down there anyway. But now you're going down there for the gram. So, Tamar Lever and colleagues say, you know, social photography has led to new visual genres, but the most important of those is the genre of capturing an event or capturing a place as an event to be shared. Going to places specifically in order to capture that place. And that then affects businesses in a big way, for example. If you're going to set up a restaurant or something like that, you better get the aesthetic right, or you're not going to get people visiting. So, there's an Indian restaurant called Adelina's. Do you guys know what I mean? It's in Victoria Park. So just as you're going into town, by the Brangwyn Hall, it's at the back end of what they call a Patty Pavilion. It's this big Indian restaurant there called Adelina's, right? It's been an Indian restaurant for donkey's years. It used to be a gig venue when I was a kid. I saw like loads of good bands in there when I was a teenager. But there's been an Indian restaurant there quite a lot of times. So it's in a nice area actually, because you're only across the road from the beach. It's nice. Cricket grounds opposite, and that could do with a bit of sprucing up, but it's a different story. Has anyone been in there in Adelina's? Done for the gram?
No, for birthday.
No. Is the place done for the gram?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. How so?
Like the way it looks, it's quite visually.
It's full on. It's too much for me because I'm ADHD and I just can't deal with it. There's far too much going on in there. There's shit coming out of the ceiling. There's people drinking these ridiculous drinks that like spew fucking fumes everywhere, and it's just a whole thing. And I'm not into it. But the food is mediocre. It's all right. It's not bad. I pay £6 for it, maybe, not 30 quid, which is what you're being charged. It's not that good. That's not the point. Food could suck. That's not the point. People are not going there for the quality of the food. They're going there for the quality of the visual experience. Especially if you go there at sunset, you've got that beautiful sunset over the bay, and you've got all this interesting shit inside, and all the table setters are done in a particular way, and the drinks are spewing out some kind of carcinogenic fumes that'll kill you in 5 years' time. It's all good. You know, yeah, people are there. Everyone there was a fucking birthday party at the time I went there. It was my birthday I went there, and they was like, I don't want any of this shit, thanks. Don't tell them it's my birthday. Place purely set up for that kind of aesthetic. To capture an image of our times, which is the only place worth going to is that kind of aesthetic. And this leads us to a whole bunch of new roles in society. The influencer in particular. The influencer I call a media format in themselves. Influencer isn't a person, it's a type of media. We can strip away the personhood of them. Influencers, positive self-branding strategies, manage a public visibility, groom followers, and I use the word advisedly, but I think it's correct. Groom followers to consume their content aspirationally, try to avoid hate watching, and parlay high visibility into income. I always ask this question as well, I'm giving up this year. Maybe I'll ask it in the seminar tomorrow. Perhaps, does anyone want to be an influencer? No. Yeah, I know your answer, but there might be others. Okay, let's take 5 minutes and then we will get into the theory part of all this. I've laid the background to do the theory. Yeah, you already explained to me what you do. I don't need this. Okay, I wasn't chasing you up for it. Because I thought it was already done. I've got an idea what I was doing, so I can put it in email. Ignore the document. We have a look at the idea. It is? Yeah. you very much.